Everyone knows the Tanya and Perek Beis that says, Nefesh Hashem is b'Yisrael Chelek Eolka mimal mamish. And there are people where you could walk in the Litvish or other world out of their ignorance, simply see that as something, a good, great thing to jump on, to say, it's not Eis Gehal. And all this extreme they say. The same Alter Rebbe that wrote Shulchan Aruch, a Gaon Adir. So first of all, even if there was no other source, the Alter Rebbe, who's comparing? Tell me someone that I'd like to know that's comparing and saying they're an authority as great as the Alter Rebbe, and they don't accept that. They learn the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, they're medayik in it, and all kinds of other things, and consider him a gadol. That's the line they don't like, maybe because you don't understand it. Did you think of that? Imreiku mikem. If you have a gadol shebegdelim like the Alter Rebbe, a gon shebegeinim, by all accounts. Even a Lubavitcher Rav once told me, he said to me, you're lucky you have the Alter Rebbe because no one can argue that he's a gon shebegein. Some other Chassidim, they could say, this one doesn't know so much, he knows only Chassidus, he doesn't know Nigla, you can't say that about the Baal, HaTanya, Shulchan Aruch. So if someone can show me someone with credentials like that, now, if you see a gon shebegein, he says something you don't understand, you know what you do? First you say, Imreiku, it's me. If I learn the Gemara and I don't understand the Gemara, what do you say? There's something wrong with the Gemara? Or something I don't understand? Learn it. Go to Chassidim who learn Tanya, who spend their entire lives, who are scholars in Ge'enim. The Alter Rebbe's Chassidim or Ge'enim Ge'enim themselves, and see what they say. And when you do that, you discover something very interesting. So thank God there's a sefer called Chassidus Mevueres, Tanya Mevueres, and on chapter 2, cites all the sources. I looked it up. Specifically, I know I'm familiar with the sources, but I wanted to read them. That Alter Rebbe is not even saying something in the first one. That Amak and Sefer HaPardes Reish Shar Lamed Beis. Reish is Chochmeh Shar Ava Perek Aleph Perek Beis, and in Perek Gimel also talks about it. That Arizal and Shar Ruach HaKedesh, which the Rebbe cites in his Horus, on his notes on that chapter in Tanya. And Lekutei Torah Parsha Bereshis from the Arizal. Shefa Tal from the Mekubal Rab Shapsi Sheftel Horowitz, which was a Talmud of the Ramak, in the introduction in the Shefa Tal. He actually says the word Mamesh too, just for the record. If you really, so it's not the Alter Rebbe adding Mamesh, he adds it. And at length, this is the most important. He was asked all these questions. How can you say apart? God is not divisible. Do you think the Alter Rebbe, the Ge'en Shabegein, didn't know that God is a Yochid and Meyuchid, and himself goes on and elaborates how God is not Shach Ani Hashem Leishanisi, you can't change, it's not made up of parts. As a matter of fact, the Misnagdim have a bigger problem. In Perek Zayin Shayach Amunah, the Alter Rebbe criticized those that hold Simson Kipshute in applying to God principles that seem anthropomorphic. So that same Alter Rebbe suddenly doesn't know Chelek Eolka mimal. So there's a whole sefer from the same Rab Shapsi Sheptel who wrote Shefa Tal. People asked him, how could you say such a thing? It's kfirah, it's apikursis. So I'm not surprised this guy doesn't know it. I mean, I can see from his writing he doesn't know Primus HaTorah in general. So that's why I'm sharing the source. Let him look up in the Sefer Nishma Shapsei Halevi, Shar Daled Ve'elech. Gate 4 and on, pages upon pages, where he explains this idea, what the Chelek means. I'll give one short explanation briefly, but I just wanted to give you the sources. The Shalah, in Beis Chochmah at the end. Yeshel Lavav, which is the Baal Mishnah Chassidim, Emmanuel Chayreki, the Beis Aleph, Cheda Dalet, Perek Beis. Yores Dvosh from the Ivan, Chelek Aleph, Drush Aleph. Eira Chaim, the beginning of Parsha Bereshis. And going further, they bring here in this, thank God, they say also that's also Pshita cited Svarim that are not based on Seid. This you could say, okay, we don't learn Seid, even though these Gdelim by all accounts are the greatest Gdelim, of the greatest Gdelim. So here's a whole bunch of sources that are not Seid, that say they also used on Neshama Yisrael, the Posek Chelek Eolka mimal. Examples they give, the Marsha, Shabbos Lamed Beis Aleph, uses Chelek Eolka without the word mimal. Pnei Yeshua Bab Metzia 58b, the Malbim Yeshaya 50a, and many places, the Hemek Dovar, Eschanan 7:10, and also many places. So, now, as far as how do you explain it? So there's plenty of places that speak about it in Chassidus. There's a long letter from the Friedman Rebbe and discussing this. He talks about the Rebbe Rashab saying that all four words each have a particular meaning, Chelek, Eolka, Mimal and Mamesh, and how the Tzemach Tzedek struggled with the issue, and the Alter Rebbe told him it's Rotzi and Shuv, and how Mimal refers to the highest levels, Mamesh refers to literal. Bottom line is, obviously, it doesn't challenge any of these Seder's of Amunah. Now, if someone said to you, you didn't know that this said in Chumash, that God created the human being in the divine image, B'Tselem Elokim, not once, Tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu, B'Tselem Elokim. How would you interpret that? Someone didn't know it was Chumash, they'd say, Kfir, Apikursis, God has an image. We know it says Beferish, Loi Adam, Loi Kamara Adam. He has no Dmus for image. The Rambam says it's kfir to say God has an image, and yet God said, I created the human being in the divine image. The Ravid actually says on the Rambam, the G'delim Mimenu from the Rambam did hold that there can be image. And it's another discussion how Kol Yochel, God can do anything He wishes. It's G'delim, because there is a possibility. We don't hold that way. But to make statements, to say God has an image is also, you can say, is apikursis, but it happens to be Chumash itself, not Kabbalah, not Chassidus, not Shem, not Achrem, Chumash Atzmei. So how do you explain it? You explain it because there's a manifestation of the divine in the structure called image, 10 spheres, in which He crafted the human being. Going deeper, however, a Neshama, like he says in Tanya, is a Chelek Elikal Mamesh, as opposed to the Nefesh Habamis, which gives us material life, biological life. The divine soul has divine personality. And not just figuratively and metaphorically, literally, Mamesh. What's divine personality? That it makes the person a more divine. That's the whole point of Aveda. If you don't have that, we really cannot become divine. So that's what we tell our children. That you have a divine component. Not that you're God, and not that it's not about a piece. There are no pieces. Pieces is childish language. The word chelik means there's a component that the divine that He placed within us, just like there's a component that He placed in the image of which He created the human being. And you need Oisius, more Oisius. Look it up here. They cite here from Sherish Mitzvah Tefillah from the Tzemach Tzedek, chapter 31. Hamonos Alakus, chapter 4, where he says clearly, Alakus means getlach. No chaz v'shalom that they're muhus alakai, elikamoyel derech moshel hamachshav eligaba hanefesh. The thought compared to the soul, the spirit of a human being, the soul is indivisible. Also has no parts. But it expresses itself through thought. To say, for example, a stone, you don't say it's a chelika. It's created by God. It's vivified and energized by God. But you don't say it's an extension of. Then there are divine agents in this world. The soul is a divine agent, literally. There's only one God. That's obvious. Anyway, these are a few sources, and there's more. If you look it up there, there's in Beis Rebbe, a Meisharim rather, 29a, a beautiful Yiddish explanation of it, and there's the letter of the Friedman Rebbe that I quoted before in volume 4 of Ligus Kedesh of the Friedman Rebbe, page 401, and goes for quite a number of pages and explains all these elements. You could also look. There's a sefer called the Kutei Amorim, all the Ha'aris of the Rebbe on Tanya that has come out. On chapter 2 also quotes many, many sources. And obviously I can elaborate more on it, but I think I've said enough. And obviously I said it with passion because I'm not like someone coming with amaratzis and just spouting things. And what we tell our children, yes, that God sent the Neshama down to earth, creating the divine image. And the Alter Rebbe, you learn the rest of the Peirik. He brings proof to it. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, another pasuk. How do you explain that? Why doesn't it say vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim in animals, in grass, in oir, in rakia, and all the other asarim amoris? Because there's something unique. He took offer. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. Metechi yusei nofach, from the language of Zohar. These are all sources. What does that mean? God has breath? God has a teich from His inside. He breathed into it. It's obviously using human language, dibra teira b'lashon b'nei adam, using human language to understand something coming from the depths. And like he continues, Yisrael bonim lamokim. Jews are considered children of God. Why is that not kfir? Children? What, God suddenly has children? We always say that's kfir. Humans have children. And a child, like he brings there, is Yisrael olah b'machshava. A child is a part of an extension, a part of their parent, as he explains in chapter 2 in Tanya. So yes, it needs explanation, no problem. But the Yisod has to be, the Alter Rebbe said this, even without any sources. And then you have all these gedalim that our job is to try to understand it. Just like before, to understand what a neshama is. And unfortunately, when you don't understand what a neshama is, you have all these questions. Yes, there's a thing called a divine agent in this world, and that's who we are. And that's critical to understand the whole idea of serving God.